I will talk about AI. And the first sentence I want to share with you is that AI, what a revolution. Literally, what a revolution. You know, I started my PhD, I defended actually, not started, I defended my PhD thesis in 2000, 24 years ago. And when I compare what we were able to do 24 years ago and what we do now, that's really incredible. Really incredible. And even though I'm specialist, when I saw GPT-4 is the second version of ChatGPT that you may know, I said, amazing. I mean, it's really amazing. And let me tell you why. I think there are two really very strong things that make these things a revolution and amazing. The first one is emerging capabilities or skills. Emerging capabilities and skills. And the second one is democratization. Okay, so let me start this impulse talk with deep diving these two aspects, which correspond, or I will try to visit for you by looking at the state of the art, at what industry is doing, and I will take AXA as an example. So the first thing is, AI is very different things. Actually, people think of AI as being like a human, a little human something. No, it's different things, different skills. And in order to kind of try to simplify this, I will tell you about 3 skills which are cognitive. So I will not focus on, let's say, movement or something. And you could imagine this as being a little parts of your brains, different functions of your brain, or you could see this as different type of experts, okay? 3 different ones. So the first skill is predictions. Predictions is something that AI is able to do, and it corresponds somehow to actuaries, actually not because we're in the insurance industry, but it's actually what actuaries try to do. They try to make predictions by looking on previous examples, and this is what technical people call supervised machine learning. Basically, you give examples, and then you ask the AI to say, okay, give me a new interpretation. What are the things that we in the industry try to predict? Well, we try to predict if a client is unhappy and would like to churn. We predict the probability of committing fraud. We predict, for example, things like call center volume so that we can adapt the size of the call center, for example, before there is a holiday season or very bad weather. But we also predict things like average loss and frequency for our claims, possible claims. So you may ask me, okay, what is the difference of current methods with AI? So what is the difference of what we have been doing now and AI? The big difference that I would like to share here is that it's more and more data and less hypotheses. So it's building models which are a little bit more complex, not a little bit, sometimes much more complex, but are able to predict without putting much of a knowledge. They're very data-driven kind of things. Let me switch to the next skill. So the next skill is what I call perception. And what is perception? It's kind of an expert able to put a label on something that for us humans is very simple. So, and the 2 most typical examples are, 3 examples are either visual, text, and audio. So you put a label on this, but you don't have any kind of intelligence or any kind of reasoning behind that, okay? So typical example of this, in a call center, you will transform the audio into text, and then you will treat the text in some way. This is AI. Another typical example, and which is very much used, is OCR, which is character recognition. So someone sends you, for example, a document or a bill, and you transform the information on that bill or that document into structured data to input your systems. Again, a task which is not so simple for machines, and that humans are very good at. And the last one, which is extremely interesting, is that, for example, we can use this capability of perception to label and to look into our portfolio. So, for example, we can use satellite imaging to look in our portfolio and know what's happening inside of a portfolio. For example, what is our exposures for solar panels? So how many solar panels, what is the surface of solar panels out in our portfolios? Something that we were not able to do, and there is no reasoning. It's just identifying where the solar panels are and how many are out there. And the last one, which is for me the most intriguing and powerful one, is language. And so if you think about a profession or an expert, you have lawyers, you have customer service, but you have also software engineers. I mean, if you think about software engineers, what they do is they write code, and code is language, is a language to instruct other machines. So these domains are very much disruptive, and we already use this in the industry. For example, we use it for email triage. So you have customers who want something, and you need to send that email to the right person, triage. We have call center activities. So in call centers, you talk a lot. So you can transform, you can do things before, during, and after. For example, before and between the calls, let's say, you can do summaries so that the next person who takes the call knows what has been said in the past. You can, during the call, think about identifying what are the important informations and then augment the conversation. And you can even imagine proposing the next best action for the person who is in relationship with the customer. We do also things like back office support, so sort of a Q&A with an intelligent agent which will then look at all the documentation we have and then answer your questions and help our agents which are distributing our products. And last but not least, I think for maybe this community, I think there's a huge opportunity in reporting because actually these systems are very reliable in terms of producing language based on some numbers. And I think there's a huge opportunity to use these systems in reporting. So language is actually very, very powerful. And it's very powerful because it's the way we communicate. It's very human. It's something that differentiates us to some extent, from animals. It also allows us to instruct and command. So this is giving the power to machines now to control other machines or even to control humans. So sometimes we think even language can go even farther. Some people, I'm maybe not part of them, but some people think this is the basis of reasoning. And reasoning is not there yet, although you exhibit, we're observing some emerging capabilities of these large language models. We're observing that they're able to do some sort of reasoning, or I would argue that we're not there yet, and it's still rather simple to trick them into some complex reasoning, more complex than basic reasoning things. So this language thing has driven something else. He has driven also a second thing, which I think we cannot ignore, which is democratization. Actually, this is the most natural interface. It's extremely human and extremely intuitive. And I think the big boom that we're living today is very much due to the fact that it's very simple and very, very intuitive to interact with things like ChatGPT. And you may have seen charts showing how fast there was the adoption around ChatGPT compared to other things which were very popular. And I think it has been driven by curiosity, but not only. I think it's because it's very, very simple to use it, and people then adopt it very, very simple. But it's not just about people. I have to say that in terms of adoption, I see companies have been incredibly fast in trying to adopt, to test these technologies. Maybe I'm biased because I'm myself a data scientist, so I talk to people who are trying to do it, but compared to the previous waves of artificial intelligence or other technologies, I think this has been very, very, very powerful. Okay, so since we are in the regulators conference, I wanted to make a small exercise and try to answer to the question, what this all means for regulators. Okay, so I think one of the first things that come to my mind, although I'm not one, is that there is the question of adoption of this technology themselves. I mean, it's very democratic, so the question is how the tool looks appearing, and I anticipate that without being, again, a regulator, there are some challenges. And these are challenges that not only for regulators, but it's challenges that exist also in our industry on those who are trying to use it. I think the first one is talent attraction. Why talent attraction is a problem if it's so simple and so democratic? It's because using the tools is easy, but knowing what is possible or not is a little bit more hard, and even harder is to build an integrated solution that is able to solve a real problem. The second problem that you may have, at least we have, is that data access. I mean, which is for all of us clearly something that is very difficult. And I expect that if you want to have access and you're in the second line of defense, it's even harder for you to have data and access and mechanisms. Okay, so that's kind of like AI for regulators, but I think the other thing that you're interested in is How do we make sure we put in place this whatever is needed to have the right safeguards so that this great thing works the way it's supposed to work and it doesn't produce some unexpected results? As I said, I'm an AI expert and rather an AI user as an insurer. So it's not to me to answer that question, but I think I'm really more than happy to help with some discussion. What I can tell you instead is something very, it's my point of view as a user. And what I think about regulation, or I think what are the consequences of the regulation seen from our window. The first thing is that democratization has moved the needle from what I call technical risk to usage risk. There is a real confusion between these two things. And if I take an example, it's as if you wanted to regulate electricity and you say, well, we should not go above 220 volts because it's dangerous. And you think this is going to regulate the usage of electricity for training animals. Okay, these things are very difficult. The one is technical regulation about the technology itself. The second one is the usage. Democratization is pushing the problem from technical to usage. And sometimes these two things get confused. And I think clearly there needs to be a kind of good understanding of the difference of the two. The other thing that is kind of complicated, and it's a real challenge for us, is that I always thought regulation as being something that brings clarity. Because then you say, okay, we have regulation, so then we can innovate. And why it doesn't work? It doesn't work because it's very hard to do. And it's very hard when you try to define things like artificial intelligence. What is artificial intelligence? And I'm not even talking about philosophical questions about intelligence. I'm talking about, is the GLM artificial intelligence or not? Or gradient boosting, is it artificial intelligence? Or do you need to have a deep neural network to say this is artificial intelligence? And if you think about it, it creates a lot of confusion and a lot of hard work in our side. Last and not least, I think that AI is multi-skilled, as I said before, and extremely democratized. This implies that it's a very transversal, extremely transversal technology which applies in all sorts of places in our company, going from HR to actuarial work to claims handling and so on. And this has a consequence in terms of regulation because then we have a lot of regulations, some which are competing with each other, Privacy versus AI Act, to give an example. In some cases, they are contradictory. In some cases, they are just not realistic because you cannot do it. You can say it, but you cannot do it. And last and not least, sometimes it's on our side, we don't understand what the regulator meant or the educational part of it is not there yet. So this is what I wanted to tell you about the present, but I have been asked as a R&D, a responsible of R&D, to tell you a little bit about the future. And actually, I'm not very good at this to predicting the future. And the second thing is I'm a scientist, and usually I should refuse to speculate. But there are things which are obvious and which are very aligned with the bets I'm doing as R&D. So the first thing that is really obvious is that, and straightforward, is that what I said previously about the skills in prediction, we can push them even farther, right? So we can say, we can predict even more. And what are the kind of things that I'm looking at? I'm trying to go from things like predicting the weather. So you should know that today, with AI, not leveraging any physical models, we predict better weather than the supercomputers with differential equations in them, okay? So what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to use this to predict climate. I'm not saying we're able to do it, but I'm trying to do that. So how AI can help us now to predict climate. Okay, that's one thing to improve prediction capabilities. But the other thing, which is quite obvious, is that these capabilities are separated, and you may want to make them work together. And you may have heard, most probably, that people are working either on agentic AI. What is agentic? You have agents, you have specialists, you have actuaries, and so on, which will collaborate together to solve a task, which is not just a simple task, but a more complex task. And the other version of it, which is my friend's Jean Lequin version, is these are pieces of the brain, and the brain is not just pieces, the pieces need to work together. So I don't know where this is going to lead us, maybe to some sort of full intelligence, maybe not, because errors accumulate. When you have a collaboration system, you may accumulate errors, and maybe we will not arrive to a full intelligence, but we will see in the future. So let me conclude really by saying that these are, at least for me, extremely exciting times. I think really AI is amazing. It's really amazing. And if you like it or not, it's out there. And it will stay with us. Because of what? Because of the skills and the democratization. It's out there, people use it. And these things are solving problems already. So to make sure we adopt this technology in a responsible manner, I think that we need to learn, because this goes really fast. And if I say we need to learn, I think this means we need to be able to experiment. We need to be able to make some sort of mistakes in a bounded space. We need to understand what is working, what is not working, how we can use it, and so on. So, moreover, it's not just about mistakes and experimentation, it's also to look at this from very different perspective, and this is why I think we need to work together, because all point of views are going to be crucial into solving this responsible adoption. Thank you for your attention.
Marcin, that was an amazing presentation. Thank you very much. I've learned probably more about AI in the last 20 minutes than I have beforehand, so I really appreciate your interventions. You'll have to talk to me about the weather and climate afterwards, so I'm really fascinated by that one. Good. Well, in case you didn't realize already, we are in the midst of a massive digital revolution, and this panel is going to pick up on many of the themes that Marcin mentioned there. We're going to look at how the sector is managing the transformation potential in AI, to drive efficiency, to improve the customer experience, and enhance decision-making. We are going to explore where AI can take us and where we need to be cautious. And probably at some point we might get around to the question of, do we need more regulation? But we shall see. So I'm delighted to be joined by three very important stakeholders in this conversation. Obviously, you've met Marcin, who is working for an insurer on issues around AI, trying to push things forward. On his left is Åsa Larson. Åsa is the Executive Director of Insurance at Finansinspektionen, which is the Swedish financial regulator. She's also a member of the EIOPA board, and before joining the regulator, she worked in industry, chief actuary at Skandia, and at various roles at Folksam as well. Thank you.
As we all know now.
Sorry?
I used to be an actuary, so I'm also human.
Yeah.
As we all know.
You've yet to be replaced with an AI bot, so it's good, it's promising. And on Åsa's left is Agustín Reyna. Agustín is Director General of BEUC. Do you pronounce it BEUC? Do you sometimes say BEUC, or do you?
Always leave it to a matter of consumer choice. The Germans pronounce it BEUC, yeah, which sounds not so nice. The French pronounce it BEUC, which sounds even worse. We can just say BEUC, which is totally fine.
Fantastic, BEUC. BEUC is the European Consumer Organization. It's an umbrella group for 44 independent consumer organizations from 31 countries. Agustín, I looked at your LinkedIn earlier on, and you started as an intern, and you are now the top of the tree, so congratulations. It's been a journey.
It's my journey.
Thank you. Good. Okay, so a bit of interactivity to start with. If you can take your phones out, we are going to start with a Slido poll. And the question is, as AI transforms the finance sector, which area do you believe holds the most potential for creating a competitive advantage over the next 5 years? We probably should have done a before and after you, Marcin, shouldn't we? Good. It seems like we're settling around data-driven decision-making and risk management, which was certainly one of the points that you brought up. I'm not sure if we can see if the bottom one there doesn't have any votes or none at all. But yeah, leveraging AI to meet evolving regulatory and compliance requirements. Well, we did hear it has potential for reporting. So yeah, you may be skeptical, but maybe not in a few years. Good, thank you. Thank you for your participation in the poll. Before we start, I just wanted to just throw in a couple of stats as well. So the Bank of England just published a report today. They surveyed 20 UK insurers, and 95%, so all but one, said they were using AI at the moment. What for? Mostly optimizing internal processes. Second was cybersecurity. And third was fraud detection. I also, if after this session you've not had enough of AI, I would definitely point you in the direction of EIOPA's report that came out in April 2024. They're not paying me to say this, but I genuinely think it was a very good report. There's a great table, a great chart halfway through that lists all the use cases that they've managed to find for AI in insurance companies as of the 30th of April. It might be out of date by now. I'm sure it's maybe something, an exercise to repeat in a year or two's time, but it was a really, really useful indication of where insurers are genuinely using AI right now. Good, okay. So similar to before, we're going to look at where we are today, and then in the next round is where we're heading. So where we are today, Agustín, we've heard how AI is increasingly shaping customer experiences with things like personalized services and automated decision-making. Where do you see the most pressing risks for consumers?
I'd like to start with a more positive note, the benefits. Yeah. And I like very much what you said about looking at how we can ensure a responsible, I will add also an accountable development of AI to support ultimately what I would say, the customers, consumers. And to do that, we need to look also at the characteristics of these markets. And what I'm interested is how AI is going to reshape the market forces, in particular in relation to insurances, but also in other markets. And when we look at insurances, what we know is that they are extremely complex markets for consumers. Switching rates are very low, and the question is how then AI hopefully can help consumers to switch more and to get more competitive offers, and to ensure that the benefits of digitalization, broadly speaking, and the use of AI could lead to a reduction of cost, as it was shown in the pool, but those reduction of cost can be passed on to the consumer, who can get even a better offers. I also would like to see the use of AI to contribute to reduce the many gaps that we have, like the climate gap or the pension gap to a certain extent, if we can predict what is going to happen in the future. And when it comes to predictability, there is where also we need to be worried and attentive of the risks. Because you mentioned you can potentially predict, how your customers are behaving, how happy they are. You can also predict whether a customer will not switch in case of a price increase. And we know that from EIOPA's data, consumers are also affected what we call the loyalty penalties. You don't switch enough, and then your prices go up. What we start also to look is in different countries, and I take the case of the Netherlands, where the Consumentenbond, our member, did some research, and they look at different home insurance policies and how they have evolved after they have been reassessed with the use of AI. And they have noticed an increase of prices of 30%. Whether this is because of the use of AI or not, I cannot tell. But the reality is that there has been a change and prices have been going up. And the question at the bottom of it, I think also relates to an extremely important element of the supervisory work, the conduct supervisory work, is to ask the right questions. What certain thing happens? And so far, we know that AI is a black box for the end consumers and has been also a black box for the supervisory authorities as well, to make sure that they have the right tools to ask the right questions and get the right answers to identify where do we want these markets to evolve. So I think that now we are gradually learning about the different potentials and applications, and also identifying the risk. And one of the risks I would like to mention, and I close with that, and it was mentioned also in the poll, is the personalization. And my question is how AI will impact, for example, the principle, we call it solidarity or mutualization, that exists in insurance markets. If we have a greater degree of risk personalization and identification of consumers, and what could be the potential impact of that on inclusion or exclusion. So I think these are the areas that we need to pay special attention when we look at our retail markets for consumers.
Agustín, thank you very much. That's very helpful for our conversation. Plenty of points there that we can pick up. Åsa, if I can bring you into the conversation. As a supervisor, what are your concerns around AI?
I thought I could start with saying that we see change, of course we do. But if we see that the possibility is AI decisions may take a millisecond, still our supervisory objectives or supervisory goals, they must be the same. Still, we need to ensure consumer protection. We need to ensure what we still protect, but the change will be how we provide that protection. And as a supervisor and talking to other supervisors in other countries, I could see that we have more or less the same experience so far. We have done a machine learning project, which was quite positive, and we have experimented with ChatGPT and Copilot, and that's basically what we've done so far. I mean, but as an integrated supervisor, it's easier for me to say that we can't just focus on insurance or say, are you working in insurance or pensions, and that's the possible choice we could make. We need to work more cross-sectoral. And we sent out a questionnaire to our industry, not only insurers, not only pension providers, but all financial actors, and we got almost 300 answers. And we could easily say that we cannot wait and see and plan what should we do with AI, and should we wait for the AI Act to kick in. It's here now. 84% of the answers said that they were using AI in one sense or another. And the most popular use was generative AI, followed by machine learning. So I don't think we only could work with other supervisors. I think we also must have an open dialogue with the industry. I think we must go, maybe not hand in hand. I'm not quite sure you want to go hand in hand with me, but still, I mean, I think we need to be open with, we need to learn together, especially when it comes to innovation, which is one of my concerns. We could see that it's beneficial for the business models. It could be very much new things arriving, but still we don't understand them, and the innovators don't always understand the purpose of regulation. And sometimes we don't either, but yeah, still we work with it. If I go back to the risks, I would say the complexity is the first one. And we will see increased complexity, and we see a black box problem, which is coming back to you. We could get decisions or answers from AI in very short time, but we can't see the the reason why the answer is the way it is. As a consumer, could I complain? Is there an appeal system or something like that? That was my first not understanding. And the other is the complexity, which is not only business models, but also the interconnectedness. We use the data in different types of systems in the financial world and outside the financial world. We see products not easily classified as insurance products or banking services or payment services. We need to understand a new landscape. That's the second one. And the third one is something that the industry raised as they see as the big risk with AI, and that was data. And they pointed at data, oh, my handwriting is terrible, data quality and data protection. And I would like to add not only quality and protection, but also a proportionate approach and unbiased and appropriate data. I mean, if we use AI for claims handling, how could we be sure that the generative AI doesn't use data that turns terms and conditions into something new interpretations, things like that? So I have 3 concerns: black box, complexity, and data. But my main concerns is still the consumer protection.
Also, thank you very much for talking us through that, very clear. Marcin, I've got a question for you, but you might want to pick up on some of the points that have been said so far. I'm thinking particularly this black box issue. Yeah.
Okay, black box.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So what I think about black boxes, which are expressed, is that I think we need to start thinking this a little bit differently. Okay. Why is so? It's first is that these systems are performant because they are complex. If not, they will not be performant. If you simplify them, they would not produce what they're supposed to produce. So you would not be able to have a conversation with the bot if the system itself was not complex and didn't have several billion parameters. Okay. The second thing. So first thing, on this one, I think that you need to start thinking, not try to understand what's happening in the box, but how the box behaves compared with what is coming in or what's coming out. Okay, so you maybe don't want to, or you have to give up. It's not that you don't want to, but you may have to want to give up on the fact that you're going to understand the engine, but you want to know that if you turn left, it turns left, if you turn right, you turn right. I mean, you need to look at this problem a little bit different. That's the first one. The second one, I think it's very important to define what do we mean by explanation or interpretation on things. So I'm not sure. I try a small test with some panel about explaining how I produce a price, premium, calculate the premium. And so actually I work on research on trying to have an AI which explains the other AI. So you have an AI which makes complex things. I don't give on complexity, but I have a second AI which will explain what the first AI is doing in simple way by simplifying, which is not a perfect explanation, but it's an explanation because it's simpler, so I can understand. So nevertheless, when you say to the customer, well, actually your premium is driven by the type of car you have, because, I don't know, your age, this and that, so on, the factors which are completely accepted. Let's assume they're perfectly accepted by consumers. They don't care. I mean, what they care is not how the iPhone works. They don't care about that. They want to know what you get for that insurance. What they want to know is, okay, I pay this much. What are you going to cover? And not how you calculated the premium. So I think you need to specify, I mean, we need to specify together, what do we mean by like whitening or explaining the black box? So that's what, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and
sorry. We hijacked. I think there is a difference, for example, between a phone and an insurance product. A phone, if I get it, I don't like it, doesn't work, throw it away, I can change it. Insurance product, people do not change insurance products. People do not see necessarily the effects of the AI in the outcome of what it comes. And there is where we turn, to Petra, Fausto, and all the colleagues, because you are responsible for ensuring that the consumers, are protected. And if we just simply rely on the black box and we assume and accept that we don't need to understand it because it's too complex in acts, but we need to look at the effect, that will be much difficult, the job of the supervisors in trying to protect the consumer. So that is where I think the real challenge comes. And that's what I said at the beginning, that we need to look at AI and the impact of AI in the markets, take into account the characteristics of those markets. Because I say, a phone is not comparable perhaps with a home insurance, let alone a life insurance.
Also, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to jump in here and just pick up on Marcin's point. Are you happy to give up some, don't worry about black box transparency, but perhaps look at outcomes? That's the rule. Or do you still feel a need to understand what's happening inside?
I don't have to understand everything that happens, but I need to make sure that what is in the black box is, in this case, the terms and conditions, not something else. I mean, it's not inventing something new that will make sure that the customer doesn't get his money. So yes and no. Yeah.
Yes. No, I kind of still agree with what I said before, so I didn't change my mind. Maybe to move to the next question, I would say you don't need to apply AI everywhere. Maybe there are a lot of use cases where you can give up this interpretability, and this is already going to bring a lot of value. But it's more. This answer is more so that we can move in the discussion.
I'm going to bring you back. Don't worry. Sorry, I am actually. And the other point brought up by also was the data issue as well. And I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's something you must have dealt with. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes. So that's again. I think there is there are two stories about this data story. There is a tendency in our market about thinking that AI is what we built. So this discussion was typically a good example of it, right? But more and more AI is being developed by someone else, meaning some GAFAM. Or emerging GAFAMs. And therefore, it's not our data. So in AI, for sure, I mean, this AI is very much driven by data, and it's extremely dependent on data, and I even said it in my introduction. It's so dependent that you can even relax things like knowledge, which in actuarial world will mean, you can drop your hypothesis of is a Poisson law or not, and still get very good predictions, right? So I think this is, but that's not the only thing we do. We also use AI, which is coming and trained by someone else. So we have to keep this in mind in the data story. Now, this being said, no matter what, we need to have data which is of quality. And what does it mean of quality? It means of the necessary quality, and there are different dimensions on quality necessary for the task at hand. Because if not, it's an infinite endeavor, and you will never reach this perfect kind of thing. You could, ask for more precision. You could ask for more availability. You can ask for everything. So you have to manage this in such a way that data is at the right level of quality, depending on all these dimensions, for the task at hand. So yeah, it's a very important topic.
Thank you. Good. Okay. Marcin, I'm going to skip over the question I was going to ask you, but I think you've addressed some of it already in your presentation. So don't worry.
I can answer a question you didn't ask.
But it was.
So the question you ask is that.
How is AI transforming the insurance sector?
Yeah. So
today.
So I said a lot already, but the other thing I wanted to say that I think there are some doubts about the value creation of AI, and I think AI is. I think there's no doubt. And it's not just the use cases I mentioned, and I think this will relate a little bit to what was said just before. It's not just the big use cases. It's also because it solves very simple things, okay? And this is the co-pilot kind of thing, right? And so, for example, AXA, we developed something we call Secure GPT, which is a secure environment so that we don't have data problems, and to some extent, we try to reduce as much as we can hallucinations and everything around that. So this Secure GPT is a tool which allows people to accelerate little tasks. Now, the question of value is very interesting because people say, yeah, but some people have doubts about it. And I'm convinced value is being created. The question is, who is capturing this value? Okay, and the question is what do we do with this value which is created, and who is going to capture it? It may not be the insurance sector who's going to capture the value. Maybe it's going to be the cloud provider, or maybe the LLM provider, right? And so this I like a lot because you mentioned about liability and responsibility. Okay, well, how do we share, because we are customer facing, but how do we share this responsibility towards these providers which are bringing the models? And the other you mentioned cross-sector. Again, if we regulate, well, we should have in mind that there is someone behind producing these AIs, and this is very important.
Thank you, Marcin. Thank you. Okay, so now we try and get our crystal balls out and look a bit more into the future and see how things may develop. Also, can I come to you on this question first? We heard a lot today about the need for economic growth, if not, even just latterly with Stéphanie Yon-Courtin. And insurers obviously are looking to grow their business and make it more profitable. As a regulator, how can you support that innovation and that growth while dealing with the results, dealing with the risks of this technology?
Yeah, we heard about complex, data-rich and inventive financial sector, and we heard about the competitiveness. And I don't think we could be afraid of development and AI, because if we do, we know that if we constrain innovation too tightly, we risk to lose the competitiveness. It was basically what you said on the screen. So what should we do? I could see many examples of innovation centers within an authority or different types of regulatory sandboxes dealing with this. It's a bit slow, but at least get some understanding between supervisors, are learning to understand new business models, and they are given the opportunity to explain the purpose of regulation, not exactly the regulation, but why do we have it, what's important for tech firms reaching into financial markets. So I think cooperation is good. But my view here would be, we're still wanting to have a fair and robust financial system. We want it to protect consumers and serves public goods such as financial stability. So we need to find those areas where it's more or less risk-free to develop, where we could, let it go, and where we need to require actions or express concerns or expectations. And I would say a few examples of expectations would be gains of automation, for instance. Should that only go to shareholders, or should it also reach the consumers? And I would say, if I look into our report again, what we see that Swedish financial institutions are using AI for is, as well as the UK firms, is automate processes. They are trying to be more efficient. They are trying to cut off some process steps, for instance. But they also use them to get insights from consumers. I'm not quite sure what that is. Is it only complaints, or is it other things as well? But they are clearly using AI to communicate with the consumers. They are using AI for chatbots, and they are using AI for consumer services or support. So I would say, if we have a speedier claims handling, that should result in faster payouts. Maybe. I mean, wouldn't cost much. Reduce overhead costs. Could they be reflected in premiums? That would be quite an expectation to express from the supervisory community. If AI is used for portfolio management, why shouldn't fees for pension funds be reduced? I know we don't regulate pricing, but still, that there must be some expectation that the development also will bring some benefits to the consumers. So to conclude, I think we need to embrace this change and the innovation in order to keep the competitiveness. But I also think that we as supervisors need to use the concept of new technology to strengthen the consumer protection. I can't see that we could change either of them before the other. And also, I think if we are striving for financial stability, I don't think we should handle conduct supervision separately. I mean, that must be part of it, which is possible now with new technology, really. So we definitely will need supervisors that understand not only financial systems, but also the new technology. So.
Thank you very much also, thank you. Agustín, can I come to you? How would you like to see regulators or regulations and supervisors respond to ensure development of AI is fair and beneficial to consumers?
I could start just simply endorsing your wish list. But beyond that, I truly believe that competitiveness, Europe's competitiveness can go hand in hand with consumer protection. There is no trade-off, and there should not be a trade-off here. And there is where the role of supervisory authority, the legislator to start with, but supervisory authorities is so important, because you can also guide and steer markets with your supervisory work. And when we talk about innovation, we should not see innovation just for the sake of innovation. We need to turn innovation into progress. And when we do that, we can bring an added value to people's lives. And that implies on making things more affordable to people, bringing new solutions, thinking how new technologies and AI can help us to address and to get better and more informed data, or transfer data into information when it comes, for example, to the climate protection gap, that help us to anticipate things that will certainly come, because that is unfortunately the direction of travel at the moment. From the supervisory, the enforcement side, and the role of consumer organizations as watchdogs, we are also looking at the use of these technologies. For example, in the UK, our member WICH has been using LLM in order to assess and analyze huge data sets coming from actually insurance reporting in order to identify market patterns. And these tools are extremely useful because it makes all our processes also much more efficient, cost efficient, and to provide data that can be analyzed in a much faster way. So I generally believe that the technology is here to stay. We need to make sure that we put it to the right use. And again, when it comes to market developments, the role of supervisory authorities is crucial here. And for that, they need to be well equipped. They need to have the right resources, which includes also now a much more broader scope of expertise. You need to start looking from computer scientists, behavioral scientists. It's a much more broader scale of expertise that is needed here. And it's something that the legislator needs to know, because when the legislature gives you powers, they also need to give you the resources. You cannot do magic with the resources that you have. And I think it's extremely important to take very seriously the role of the supervisory authorities in accompanying all this process.
Thank you, Agustín. Marcin, again, I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to anything you've heard so far. If not, I will ask you my question.
No, I think no. I think honestly, it needs to find a good trade-off and a good usage, and as I said, a responsible adoption of AI. And this goes through a multi-stakeholder dialogue, and it's going to be even more if AI keeps going the way it's going recently.
And my official question was really around not the actual technology itself, but the kind of governance and operations around it. So if insurers want to take advantage of large language models, AI technologies, what changes do they need to make to their operations and governance to get those key benefits?
Well, so if we keep going this direction, I think insurance needs to become a sort of a, not really software company, but something towards that direction. Because it's going to be a system which is going to be driven by a lot of algorithms which are going to be running somewhere. So there is some fundamentals. One of them was mentioned data. You need to have a very good governance in place and even strategy around data and manage it properly. I think the all fundamental is, okay, well, where these models are going to be running. Again, previously, these models were relatively small, were running locally. These models now are very, very big. Not all of them, but some of them, so they don't run necessarily in our premises anymore. In the more advanced version of this, if you're a software company, I think you have to change a little bit how things are run. So I think IT is not, please fix my printer. I think IT is part of to some extent, part of the business and the strategy. And then you have things like, for example, for the data part, you can think to have something which is data products kind of thing, so that there's ownership for some sort of data, and this is value, so that somebody has a real interest into making sure this data is of quality. But then there are other things. There is also cybersecurity. I mean, if you are more of a software company and you interact with the world through machines, well, you need to increase your cybersecurity for sure. So these all things. And this is very technical. I'm rather a tech guy, but I think there is two other very strong pillars, I think, which are very important if you want to really capture. If you really want to capture full value, I think you need to rethink the processes. Because if you think that you're going to do the same a little bit faster with AI, this is going to take you a little bit farther, but not really, because probably you're going to want to have, and you mentioned it, you're going to want to have a human in the loop. So actually the human in the loop in that process, maybe it's necessary, but if you force it everywhere, then this human is going to be the bottleneck, because everything is going to be very fast and in milliseconds, but then you're going to have a guy who's going to review this. So I think you will have to review the processes so that they make sense without taking unnecessary risks. That's one. And the second one, I mean, this is changing, and there are not that many people who understand what is possible, what was. So there is I think it is a very big transformation, educational. We put training in place, but still, I mean, training. I mean, you cannot do masters, right, at work. So no, there is a real people transformation, so that people, a culture, understand it and really embrace it. So I think these are the things. Kind of a quick overview of what I think is really fundamental to capture full value of AI.
Thank you very much, Marcin. Appreciate it. I am going to ask a final question for all the panel, and then we're going to go to audience Q&A. I'm pleased to say we have time for Q&A now. So yeah, please be ready with your questions if you have them. If not, I've got plenty. Final question for all. So it touches on the point that you were bringing up, Marcin, which is, will AI in insurance replace human judgment in, for example, making coverage and claims decisions? And what would that mean for ethics and consumer trust?
What a question. That goes to the direction of, code is law. Is when in the future, we will have the computer code replacing, at the end of the day, the role of the legislator. I don't believe we can fully replace humans at the end of the day. Someone needs to code this. Someone needs to create the machine. And there is where it becomes so difficult, the question of allocating liabilities and accountabilities at the end of the day. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the future will bring, but I go back to what I've said before. We need to make sure that innovation becomes progress. So if in the future, the machine replaces the human in insurance, hope not, but you never know, that this is because of this as a result of a progress and not just simply innovation for the sake of innovation. And when I said before, progress means bringing added value to the people.
Thank you. Also, any reflections on that question?
On that easy peasy question. Very easy to answer, or not. Well, I'd like to say that I don't think that replacement is the right word here. I think we could get a lot of help. We could focus on the trust part, on the ethics part. We could focus on communication. We could focus on explainability, not necessarily exactly what the algorithms are doing, but we could get a lot of help from letting the machine do the easy parts. But I think we need to strengthen the risk management in the sector, and I think we need to talk about what we mean with the systems of governance, and I think we need to focus on how we communicate with consumers, how we could show that the system is to protect consumers, make sure it's fair. So there is a number of areas we might need to cover better than we do today. But on the other hand, if the machine will do quite a lot of the more boring stuff, we could be helped by that. But no, I don't think that AA will replace all of the human judgment, but much of it, actually, I think.
Marcin.
Yes, so it's a complicated question, and there are several elements in this question. And so first you would need to define AI, which I already said is not so simple. And then you would most probably define what do you mean by claims. And when I say that, there are simple claims and there are complex claims. So if we think of AI not being a kind of a little man magic thing responding to things, but sort of a combination of LLM with some deterministic system, well, actually we already do it. So we already do coverage check automatically, and this is for simple claims where there is where the wording is clear and the claim is clear. And so what we do is we verify it. It's supervised by a human today, but honestly, technically speaking, it could be not supervised action by action. But this is possible. We do it. It's actually, we're even thinking about building a product around that and provide it to other insurers. But it's actually not that difficult, to be honest. Now, you use the word judgment, so I guess you were addressing more complex kind of things. So for more complex kind of things, I think the question is it worth it? I mean, for the complex ones, it will require a lot of effort to make a system able to analyze, and I think we will go more in the direction of what you said, some system which will enhance human judgment. For example, analyzing a very complex case where there's a lot of things which have been never seen before and so on. Yeah, I would rather think, yeah. So I don't think it's not possible. It's complex, but yeah, I don't think everybody will do it. It's not worth it. Now, then you mentioned ethics. So, well, ethics is a little bit too large, so I will maybe focus on fairness because I heard already several times fairness during the day. So fairness is very complex, and I can talk about it a lot, several hours, because what you put behind it is not very clear. It's a little bit like the black box story. It's not very clear what people mean behind fairness, and these things are sometimes contradictory. You mentioned solidarity, and solidarity doesn't necessarily go together with equal treatment, because you want to be solidarity, so you cannot necessarily do these two things together. So Here, in this automatized system, well, for sure you have equal treatment, right? Because everybody's going to go through the same system and is going to be treated exactly the same way. Maybe that's not what society wants, but at least if this is the criteria, everybody's treated the same way. So that's for sure. And then the last part is consumer trust. So on consumer trust, what I think, I'm not sure, I mean, someone said, yeah, it's important, fairness for people. Yes, I believe it is, but it's very difficult to express because it's not an individual thing. Fairness is about a group of people being treated differently for most probably on a vulnerable aspect of that describes them. So I don't think it's very difficult to prove, let's put it this way. So I think that the problem with trust is, and you feel it all, actually, in this room for sure, maybe if I go to a data science conference less, but people don't trust machines. I mean, so the thing is, are we going to have a machine? I think I will maybe turn the trust question into another question or an observation, which is, and I would be even interested to know, at what point people will accept that to be handled by a machine, knowing that this machine is better than a human. Okay, and to make you feel that, let's don't use insurance because insurance maybe you know too good. Let's use medical recommendation. And so when people will accept that if a machine is a black box, very bad, black box, completely no explanation, makes a prediction which is 10 times better than the best doctor in the world, 50 times better, 100 times better, no explanation, and tells you need to do that, at some point, people will trust the machine.
Like self-driving cars and things like that, yeah. Agustín, yeah.
About something. It is about trust on the machine, or it's about trust on the companies behind the machine? Because many people might not know how a phone works, no, but they trust, let's say, Apple. So this is a question of the trust on who is behind the machine at the end of the day, which from a supervisory perspective is also about who you can address yourself. So, and so that, I think it's an important thing to differentiate as well, because people are already using all these machines, you know, even AI power. So it's really about the trust that we have on those behind and on the regulators, obviously, as well. And on the point of fairness and ethics, is the question of how it's defined, what is fair in a given society, in a certain place, and what are the benchmarks to assess what is fair. And that goes back to the question, you know, is code law, or it is the role of our democratic elected representatives to define the boundaries of how we're going to assess what is fair or not in a given society. But yeah, interesting philosophical question.
No, so on the trust, yes, absolutely. But there are different trusts. I was talking about trusting because that was the question. Trust of the technology, this technology being, actually, if you think about the AI, there are three trusts. There's the trust of the company or the brand that is behind. There's the trust on the technology itself. And because AI is very much personified by people think it as being a human, there's the trust in the relationship they have with the human, which can be deceiving, right? So you can have something that talks to you in a very nice way, and you create some sort of trust which is deceiving. So yeah, it's known as being part of the equation, but I was answering on the technological part of it.
You're allowed to deviate, Marcin, you know that.
sorry.
No problem. Good, okay, so I think it's Q&A time. I see one hand already being raised at the front here. I don't know if we can bring some microphones. I'll work my way front to back. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, first actually a comment, you already mentioned the home insurance. A few years ago, I received information from my home insurance that my new fee was 1,500 euros for the next year. And I didn't quite recall what it was the year before, but that seemed super expensive to me. So I called them up, and I said, first of all, I couldn't find actually the cost of the last year in the portal, which I think wasn't very transparent, and I asked for an explanation because the amount was 3 times as much as I'd paid the year before. And they said that introduced a new AI algorithm, and that's how it happened. I said, okay, I wanted to know more. Which factors did you use? And, how was it programmed and all of that? Of course, the poor call center agent had no clue. In the end, I took all my insurances no harm done, I went to another company. But I'm also aware of examples where people couldn't get a mortgage because their name was confused. They had a very common name, and their name was confused with another person who had a lot of debt. And the AI checked with a credit registration and said no. Or they couldn't properly identify the person, they said no. And it was very hard to appeal. And of course, we have the Dutch childcare benefit scandal, which to me is still the most horrible example of bias in AI, where children were being placed out of the house and personally bankruptcies happened. And I guess my question is, we're talking about regulation, legislation. I guess it's a matter of fact that it always runs behind, right? We also discussed that it takes a while to really implement these things. So another approach, of course, is through ethics by design. Let's use that as a container word, where, of course, through the entire design process, from an initial idea through programming up to design and deployment, you could really think about all of bias, transparency, explainability, and those factors. But, and I'm there curious also to hear your reflection, often it's challenging to make that very tangible and good discussions. And I also wonder to which extent you think that's already being used. Because I think also as a sector, there's huge responsibility to really avoid other extreme cases also in the future.
Any volunteers?
No, yeah. I go first? Or you want to go first? No? What was the first part of the story?
AI goes bad.
Very bad.
Yes, no, so on the explanation part, yes. Actually, and it answers a little bit the question of explanation and fairness. I think these are very interesting examples. Why I think is interesting because, and I said it before, I think we really need to nail, maybe I'm too scientific, by the way, too mathematician, but we need to nail what the question is, right? What is the thing you want to understand from an AI? And I think the answer you got maybe is a true one, but actually you could imagine that from a year to another, the AI model, which is a black box, changed the price for you. And we could work out an algorithm which will tell you what were the main drivers that changed the price for you. Now, this being said, this relates a little bit to the literacy that was discussed during the day. One of the reasons this may change is that a lot of people, not one, a lot of people which are a similar profile as you have had a lot of claims, which maybe we don't understand, but this is going to be picked up, but this will be picked up even by a logistic regression, right? So no AI in there. And then the explanation for the customer is, well, turns out that your profile seems to be more risky because the world has changed. I don't know how much this is an explanation that customers are ready to accept. So if you define this, what you really want to know, I think AI is not the problem. I mean, we can find the explanations, these type of explanations. Of course, not the very small details, but we can.
Thank you, Marcin.
But if we take this home insurance example, what would be the purpose of regulation here? Not just stopping this. I mean, what do we want to protect? We should start there, and not start with existing regulation and say we have this and then we add that. But we should start with what do we want to obtain here? And for instance, maybe we don't want premiums raised. I mean, of course, as consumers, we don't. But set a ceiling, maybe, or some kind of limitation, or something else, which I can't come up with at the moment. But I mean, we need to think of why do we need a regulation, not just what do we have in the regulation. Could we add something?
Taking your case of the home insurance, might sound weird, but that type of case for me is the least worrying because you really notice that there is something really, really wrong here. So you give me a solution, then I go somewhere else. You know what really concerns me? When the increases are going to be 10%, 5%. That for an individual consumer that, like you, probably you didn't know about what you paid last year, will go unnoticed. But this is a lot of consumer surplus being captured. So there is where we need to be extremely, extremely attentive. I don't know the solutions, but this is an area obviously of attention. On the law, going always running behind, I totally agree, and this is how democratic process works, because first you identify the problems, then you come after. But what I would really like to see is organizations like my members or the supervisory authorities that are ahead of the curve. So from a supervisory perspective, you already have your engine in place in order to address the potential risk or potential situations that might arise. So that's what I think we need to invest much, much more on supervisory work. I will say, of course, on conduct work, but I think both things can come together. Thank you.
I'm going to make a very smug comment and say in the UK, by law, they have to put the last year's price on your renewal letter. So, yeah. So, new regulation, everyone. Good. There was a question at the back. Thank you.
From the German Association of Insured and a member of EIOPA ISG. I have a question related to the usage of AI and the distribution channels of life insurers. And I would like to take the example of private retirement provision. In my opinion, if best advice is based on AI, it should be completely independent from the product provider. So the answer could be an annuity, it could be a bank saving plan, or it could be an investment fund saving plan. But if the answer is always an annuity, then in my opinion, there is a clear bias in the advice, and the algorithm which is on which is based the AI should be supervised by the competent authorities. So my question is, when do the supervisors intervene in order to control, to make a severe and clear control of the algorithms on which the AI is based in this particular question?
Yeah, so the use of AI in financial advice, how would you like to regulate that?
One thing that I wanted to already say in the previous one, it goes back to my example of electricity. It's not a problem of the AI here in both examples. I mean, maybe in that one, it's because they use it as an excuse of being a problem, but that problem you may have it without AI. And in that one, I mean, it could be your distribution channel that, they're pushed with a commission to push more annuities, right? So it's not, I don't see where the problem is with AI here. It's unrelated. It's the conduct which is not working. That's kind of my answer. I mean, should be the same way regulated.
Is it even AI? I mean, is it even AI if we get the same answer every time? Isn't just a statement. Please advise annuity. But to answer your question, we have a directive of distribution, and distribution doesn't mean just selling insurances or long-term savings. It means the product cycle and the needs for buying this product from the customer, and there is a suitability test which should be walked through by the advisor. So we have some muscles here as regulators, actually. So it's just, I dare you, supervisors in the room, try it.
Thank you also. Any other questions from the floor? Oh, sorry, yep, just behind here. Oh, and there's more, sorry. We've got 5 minutes left, so if you can be quick, and we try and get as many in. Thank you.
Yep. Hello. Thanks to the panelists for sharing their knowledge and their humor, must I say, and entertainment. I'm Stefanos, I'm an actuary, a human actuary.
We have a lot of them today.
Yes, it seems so, So coming from a question from a technical perspective on insurance pricing now, actuaries have been using, let's say, models for pricing insurance policies for decades now. And Marcin, I think this is a question for you, but also open to the panel. In your initial statement, you posed a rhetorical question about GLMs, generalized linear models, actuarial pricing models, whether should they be considered AI. So can I take you back to that rhetorical question, and perhaps you can provide us with your perspective and reflect on that, and whether that should be the case, and whether there is a line where we jump from traditional mathematical models into AI, and where is that line?
The definition question again, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question, and if I had the answer, I would be famous. No, I tell you why it's a very difficult question, but I will give you some elements of what is my opinion on this. The difficulty is that this is extremely gradual. Okay, so it's extremely gradual because you could go from a logistic regression to a GLM, and then you could say, imagine 1 neuron. So 1 neuron is a logistic regression with a nonlinearity. Then you can do 2 neurons, and then you could do 1 billion of neurons. You have a deep learner, and if you structure them, you have a transformer, which is the basis of LLMs, right? So you see, it's a very, very continuous thing. And I think the big challenge behind trying to make a sharp line between the things is that we try to answer to the question, what is AI? And when we say AI, we try to answer to the question, what is intelligence? And I'm not sure this is the right way. I mean, I was against trying to define at all artificial intelligence as an expert when legislation was being made, because it's very difficult, right? And I think that we should try to define AI not per what it is. And by the way, it's like, as I said, there are use cases, so this is another story, but not as per what it is, but as what are the characteristics that bothers us in using them. And so what are the fundamentals behind this technology which bothers us? So in electricity will be voltage, right? Because if you have 600 volts and you put it in your house, well, then it's a problem for you if you do something wrong, right? So, so what I think, and I didn't like in the definition, ultimate definition, which is in the AI Act, is that the notion of complexity disappear. And I think that if the definition of AI is it's some sort of intelligence, and because we're very much into machine learning, it's a lot of about doing inference, right? So kind of going from some facts to another one. If this inference is trivial, which is, for example, linear regression, right? You have some points, and then you have a new point you have not seen in the past, and then you extrapolate that point. You get the new information, which you didn't have because you make this extrapolation, right? Well, come on. I mean, regression is, everybody agrees, is not AI, right? So I think where this becomes AI is then when this is not trivial anymore, which kind of connects to the black box thing. When this inference is something that you would not be able to explicitly explain. Not that you don't understand the algorithm, right? Because it's, don't get me wrong, actually, I know exactly how a transformer works, every single detail. The thing is, when I look at the input, I'm not able to predict what's going to be the output like this, even in an approximate way. And I think this is, well, where I think the AI kind of becomes intelligent. I mean, I wouldn't use a real word if I wouldn't call it intelligence, but this is where I think here we have all the problems of biases. We have the problems of like people wanting to understand what's happening, right? Because the bias would be learned and you would not be able to see it or understand it, right? And so after all this, what I explained, my position would be GLMs are not things, although they could also produce some bad results, right? I mean, if GLMs are not used properly, and I would argue that even a logistic regression not used properly could produce also bad results. So it's not because it produces bad results that this is AI.
I can't believe you left it to the last 3 minutes to mention your opinions on the AI Act. I think we need another half an hour. Is that okay, everyone? Look, we are unfortunately out of time. It's been very entertaining having the panelists on stage. I hope you agree, and if you could give them a quick round of applause. Thank you.